Hello everyone, my name is Arthur Ross, I play the viola, and this is episode 6 of the new video series. I've been working on the exercise in E-flat major by Alessandro Rolla. And if you remember from episode 4, I worked on or went through the first 3 phrases. So we're going to start with phrase 4 now. Now, what's interesting about this particular phrase is that it has elements of what came before it, and you'll see what comes later, what comes after it. From the second phrase, it has the elements of the bass line happening at the same time as the melody. And you'll see later on, it has material that is expanded later. Again, bass line. Also, remember these melismas or flourishes of notes going up and down and swirling around. That will return as well. All right, so next phrase, phrase 5. That material is new. It's not like anything which came before it. And it brings up an interesting question. What I talked about in episode 4 about one phrase teeing up or pitching the next phrase. So there was the phrase which follows depends upon the ending of the previous phrase to determine how it starts. So a question is, how do I play this phrase 5 based on what phrase 4 gives it? So in that case, the emotional power, I would call it, from phrase 4 dictated a certain amount of emotional power in phrase 5, but I'm not certain I actually like phrase 5 that way. Again, what I'd like to do is actually something like this. Something much softer and interior, so to speak. But again, it takes its cue from what comes before it. So if I don't get this right, what ends up happening it kind of works, kind of, but it feels abrupt. So I've got to work out exactly how I make that transition and how I tee up the phrase 5. So again. So that's a possibility, and we'll have to kind of work with that. What I did was take a little bit of the power, a little bit of the juice off of the end of the 4th phrase so that the 5th phrase could start in a little more of an interior way. So, okay, something to work on. All right, phrase 6. If you'll recall, this is very similar to the 3rd phrase. Remember the structure of the A section of this. Oh, and by the way, all of this stuff I'm talking about in terms of form, phrase 1, phrase 2, phrase 5, etc. I go into detail about this in episode 2 of the series. So if you're interested in that, go back to that episode and that will explain exactly what I'm talking about here. So phrases 1 and 2 are 2-bar phrases, and phrase 3 is a 4-bar. Phrase 4 and 5 are 2-bar phrases, and phrase 6 is 4-bar. So it again makes sense that those 2 4-bar phrases would parallel in terms of construction. So, all right. So phrase 4, 5, and 6. That is the beginning of the B section. A radical departure from everything which came before it. So again, thinking about the form, it is crystal clear that this is new material, faster tempo, notes flying all over the place. But is it really that different? As I said before, in the 4th phrase, you had material that was going to reoccur and expand in the following phrases. And here it is. So all of those running notes, the swirling, spinning that you were introduced to in phrase 4 comes to full fruition in the B section. It also can color the way I eventually decide to play phrase 4. In the B section, these quick notes are running, so they just move. So do I want to play those in the same way in phrase 4? Or do I want to play with them a little bit more and make a difference in the way they sound from one phrase to the next, one section to the next? One thing I could do is mess around with the tempo, for example. So again, just another element that will color the way I play that phrase. All right, onward to the B section. So that's the first phrase of B. Again, 4-bar phrase, running notes galore. Now, I want you to listen to I'm going to play phrase 4 and phrase 5. And then I've got a detail to talk about. All right, there's a lot to talk about here. Remember in episode 2 when I said that, that this second phrase of the B section was the only 5-bar phrase, and because of that, there was some special elements there. Well, what's special about it relates to what came before it. It relates to what happens in the first phrase of the B section. The first phrase establishes the new normal. It establishes how the new tune goes, and it's essentially running 30-second notes for the for at least for the first half in particular, and then to a lesser degree throughout that entire phrase. And so it's impressive when played well. but there is something predictable about it. It establishes what's happening, and it doesn't deviate until it does. The fifth phrase is different. Keeping the fourth phrase in mind, this is what you get in the fifth. Right away, you have a single bar to remind you of, oh, this is what I did before, but no, it's going to be different. You only get a single bar before it changes. Now, a good question is why? Why would a composer do that? Other than they want to, other than the muse inspired them to. The thing about repetition, and this is a truism throughout life, when you repeat something, if it doesn't change, then we tend to lose interest. If you repeat something and it doesn't change, we tend to lose interest. So the whole idea is, if you're going to repeat something for emphasis, then adding a little bit of variety, adding a little bit of spice keeps your interest through the repetition. So you gain the power of repeating something. You gain the power of repeating something, but changing it a little bit keeps your interest. So, couple things I'm also doing to sort of add a little variety and emphasize the change is I start the second phrase of the B section softly. When I do it successfully, I'll start it softly. That allows me to emphasize the lead-in into the change in that phrase, and it gives a little bit of variety so that the repetition is not boring. Okay, so phrase 5. That is the most charged emotionally of anything that we've done thus far in this piece. It's the hottest that we've been emotionally thus far. Tons of notes, flourishes up and down. So what I'm trying to do, to the limit of my physical capability, obviously speed helps with the intensity, with the fire, with the hotness. But it's also clear articulation and flourish of the, not flourish of the line, but a clear path of the line. All right, so many things to think about on that. Phrase 4, phrase 5, and then moving on. Remember when I said that the second phrase of the B section was the hottest thus far? Well, the next phrase adds even more. Those first notes of each set of the 32nd notes, instead of being a single pitch, are multiple stops, triple stops in this case. Remember when I said that triple stops was the composer being fancy when it comes to string instruments? Well, here it is in spades. So again, to compare the first phrase of the B section, those first notes in the down bow strokes, these, these are now triple stops. 3 notes played instead of just 1. So this is the third phrase of the B section. Right? And then something completely different for the second half of this phrase. So, now comes the part of the piece that I am the least convinced of, the least satisfied by. And I think it's Rolla's fault. I think it's Rolla's fault. Here's the fourth and last phrase of the B section. It's quite lovely, actually. But I don't think it works in this piece. And here's why. Going back to the third phrase of the B section, leading into this phrase that I just played. Remember again this idea of the phrase before it teeing up what comes later. This is what happens. You have essentially the third phrase of the B section, the hottest phrase emotionally charged, the hottest emotionally charged phrase of the entire piece. And then right after it, you have this phrase that I just played. With all the power coming from that third phrase, the triple stops, the swirling, spinning notes, it would imply that the following phrase come in strong. But there's nothing about that phrase, to me, that speaks strongly. It's another one of those interior things. So again, I'll change what I do at the end of the third phrase of the B section to see if that helps. I could execute it better, but I took the juice off of the phrase 3 in order to set up phrase 4 properly. But then that ruins the power and the final climax of the phrase 3. So I'm in a dilemma. If I do the end of phrase 3 as it implies to itself and to me, then it doesn't set up phrase 4. If I do it in a way that sets up phrase 4, it betrays its function as the end of phrase 3. I think this is composer error. Now, I could be wrong. This could be performer error. It could be that I don't have the skills. Could be that I'm not conceiving of it properly. But I'm more and more tending to think that this was the wrong choice of Rolla's, to put this particular theme, this particular melody, this particular phrase in this particular place, given what came before it. So my job is to figure out how to make that work. All right, let's go through the B section. And that is the lead-in to the return of the A section. All right, I think that's enough for episode 6. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the like or the subscribe button. Please share this with people. It is actually really helpful. And as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.